Today is Monday and I'm making tofu quinoa bowl, a simple and quick nourish bowl with vegan source of protein and lots of vegetables. To start, I'm going to season the tofu with some seasoning. Here I'm using Montreal chicken seasoning, but you can use any seasoning you want and just mix with a little bit of oil and set it aside for now. Next, I'm going to cook the quinoa. So I use 1 cup of quinoa per 2 cups of water, and I use the rice cooker to cook it. Next, I'm going to use the same dressing as what I made last week. So I use avocado and some yogurt, some mint, cilantro, and garlic, and a little bit of lime and honey, and 1 chili to make the dressing. I just put everything in the blender and then blend it up into a dressing and season to taste. For the vegetables, I'm going to cut some bell peppers, and I'm going to shred some carrots. And here I also have cucumbers and chopped cilantro in there as well because that's what I have left over from the other meal. And then I'm going to fry the tofu in a little bit of oil until it is nice and golden brown on both sides. Once the quinoa is cooked, then it's time to put it together. And here we have the tofu quinoa salad with avocado dressing. Very easy to make and is perfect for Monday. Another day of a plant-based meal. Today I'm making mashed cauliflower with beets and spinach. To start, I'm going to roast the beets first because they take the longest to cook. So I just wash the beets and then cut it into half because this one is big, and then mix it with a little bit of oil and then wrap in a tin foil and put in the oven for about 45 minutes. In the meantime, we are going to start making mashed cauliflower. So start with cutting cauliflower into little florets, and then we're going to cook it in a pan with a little bit of water to let it steam and let it cook for about 5 to 10 minutes until it's soft and tender. Then drain the water out and put the cauliflower in the blender together with a little bit of bouillon cubes, some butter, and then add some sour cream or vegan yogurt. If you don't want any animal products, I use Greek yogurt, and then blend it up in the blender until it becomes nice and smooth, and season it with salt and pepper to taste. Now it's time to cook the spinach. I just add a little bit of oil in the pan and just cook it straight from the freezer because it's frozen spinach, and then I season with salt and pepper to taste. Now it's time to check the beets. If you can run the knife through the beets easily, then it's perfectly cooked, and then you can easily peel the skin off. I love roasted beets because they're nice and juicy and sweet, and I think that it will go well with the spinach and cauliflower. Now it's time to plate, so I'm going to line up the mashed cauliflower at the bottom and then top it up with the salty spinach and then top it up with the beets. And then for some crunch, I'm going to sprinkle some chopped nuts to finish it off. I drizzle with some balsamic glaze, and that was my Tuesday plant-based meal. It's Wednesday, and today I'm making roasted squash with quinoa and yogurt. Today is going to be another plant-based day, and I'm going to add the roasted beets that I have left over from yesterday into the dish as well. So here I'm going to cut the squash into thin pieces and then coat them with some oil and seasoning. Here I'm using Montreal chicken seasoning again because that's what I have. You can use any seasoning that goes well with the squash, and then I'm going to line it up and put it in the oven for about 15 minutes and then check it and flip it later. In the meantime, I'm cooking quinoa and also chop some garlic, and then we are going to stir fry the quinoa with some spinach and butter later. After 15 minutes, check the squash and flip it and then put it back in the oven for another 10 minutes. Now it's time to do the stir fry. So I stir fry some spinach with butter and garlic and then season with salt and pepper, and then add the quinoa and then season it again to taste. Now it's time to put it all together. So I cut up some beets that I have left over from yesterday and then put it on top of the quinoa and spinach stir fry and then layer it up with the roasted squash, and then top it up with some yogurt and chopped nuts. And that's it. That's my plant-based dinner for Wednesday. It's Thursday, and today I'm going to use the squash to make the sauce for the gluten-free pasta that I have, and then I'm going to top it up with some crispy bacon. The idea here is to use the squash to make the sauce that kind of tastes like mac and cheese but without the actual cheese. I'm going to use nutritional yeast to give it the cheesy flavor. To start, I'm going to cut up the squash and then roast it in the oven together with the bacon at the same time, and then in the meantime I'm going to prepare other ingredients for the sauce. Here I chopped the garlic and diced the onions and set them aside for now. Once the bacon is crispy, I took them out, and then I kept roasting the squash a little longer for about 10 to 15 minutes until the squash becomes nice and tender and you can run a knife through easily. It means it's perfectly done. I want to add some sort of green into this pasta dish, so I have frozen broccoli in the freezer. I just mix the broccoli with the bacon fat that is already in the tray and then put it back in the oven for another 10 to 15 minutes. To make the sauce, I start with butter in a hot pan and then cook the garlic and onion in there until it's fragrant, and then I add some thyme into the mix, and then I'm going to put that in the blender together with the roasted squash and nutritional yeast, a little bit of salt and pepper, and then season it to taste. Now it's time to cook the pasta. And the broccoli is already cooked, so I'm going to cut them into smaller pieces with the scissors, and I'm going to do the same for the bacon as well because we want small pieces for the garnish on top of the pasta. Once the pasta is done, then drain the water out and then add the squash mac and cheese sauce in there together with the broccoli, and then give it a good stir. And there you have a healthier version of mac and cheese with some crispy bits of bacon on top. And that's my dinner for Thursday. Happy Friday! Today I'm going to make another pasta dish without the actual pasta because I'm going to use zucchini as the pasta. First, I'm going to roast some vegetables to go with the dish. So I'm cutting cherry tomatoes and then some onions and then some bell peppers because I already have them cut up in the fridge, so why not just put them in there too. Season with some salt and pepper and mix with a little bit of oil, and then put it in the oven until it's nice and roasty. We just have to keep an eye on it. In the meantime, let's prepare the zucchini. I cut both ends off, and then I'm going to use the vegetable slicer that I have to shred them into thin pasta-like strips. If you don't have this kind of tool, or if you don't have a mandolin, then you can also just use a knife to cut them into thin strips as well. Now that I prepared all the zucchini, then I'm going to salt it. So I add a little bit of salt and mix well with the zucchini pasta. I'm going to let it rest so that it sweats and release the water out. While we're waiting, I'm going to get some basil from outside. The roasted vegetable looks good now, so I'm going to turn off the heat and leave it in the oven for now. Here I cut up some basil and bacon because I'm going to stir fry the zucchini pasta later. Now when you check the zucchini, you'll notice that you can squeeze liquid out of it now because it releases the water, and this will prevent the zucchini to become soggy and liquidy when you stir fry it in the pan. Now it's time to make the dish, so start with a hot pan and render the fat from the bacon until the bacon is crispy, and then add the roasted vegetables in there and give it a stir for a couple more minutes. And then I added balsamic glaze to add some sweetness and a little bit of tanginess to the dish. And then I add a little bit of salt and pepper. And lastly, I add the zucchini, and you don't want to cook it for too long because it's going to release a little bit more liquid. I stir it for a couple more minutes and then I turn off the heat, and then I added the basil. And this is my zucchini pasta dish with roasted tomatoes and some bacon. Alright, I hope that you enjoyed the meal ideas that I shared with you today. Thank you for watching until the end. I wish you have a great week, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!